Before we begin our conversation, here is a quick shout out to the pathologically curious. Check out the Maverick Paradox magazine. It's a digital magazine written by Mavericks for business owners and professionals. You can find the magazine at themaverickparadox.com. The magazine's aim is to provoke maverick leadership everywhere. Welcome to the Maverick Paradox podcast, where we explore what it is to be a maverick and discover effective modes of leadership. I am Judith Germain, and my mission is to propel the maverick mindset into a world where character and integrity will ultimately have a higher premium than personality and bureaucracy. So thank you for joining me on this journey. If you would like to continue with me, then please subscribe to my podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or one of the other popular podcast platforms. And today, our guest is Mark Bremner. Hi, Mark.
Hi, Jude. How are you?
I'm feeling fantastic, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. After a manic year, looking forward to 2 weeks off. So, yeah, Christmas is a good time, I think, because the world shuts down. It's the one opportunity that I get to completely switch off, in all honesty. So, yeah, can't wait.
I know, I think we're all like that. And it's that kind of, will we switch back on again in January, or do we sneak in an extra week?
Yeah, that is an option. So,
Mark, tell us who you are and what you do.
Okay, so yeah, my name's Mark Bremner. I'm the Chief Exec and Business Development Director for MBKB training. So we are a training provider. We do apprenticeships, we do short courses, and we also do business consultancy, predominantly in payroll, or the area of payroll, internal audit, and leadership and management.
Brilliant. Sounds pretty good. I mean, what you don't mention is that you're like the premier group of individuals, aren't you? I'm quite well known.
I think, for certainly in the payroll sector, we were the first ones to offer the payroll apprenticeship. And, how we tend to sort of model a business is by providing the best possible service and ensuring that we can cover all our clients' needs. So I think we're kind of unique in that apprenticeship world that, not only do we do the apprenticeship, but we do the help desk, and we do individual support and consultancy, and we headhunted some very serious players in that field, so that we've got a head of policy and a head of training, etc. So yeah, it makes us a bit different, I think.
It does. It's running. Your team's actually run quite unusually as well, isn't it? So that's one of the things I'd love to talk about. And when I say unusually, what I notice with your team is that you run your company based on the abilities of the individuals, and as their abilities change, it appears that you change in terms of how the business is run. Is that right? Have I got that right?
Yeah, I guess so. I think, one of the things that we've always prided ourselves on, any of the businesses that I've sort of built, is that, it's the individuals that make it a success. People say it's customers first. It's not. It's team first, and then customer service. I mean, don't get me wrong. We do pride ourselves on providing an extremely high level of customer service and being very responsive and efficient when our customers need us. But ultimately, you do have to look after the team. And my ethos really is that, we're all individuals and we've all got individual strengths, and there's no point in trying to force people into, square pegs into round holes. And I think one of the reasons why a lot of managers and leaders don't get the best out of their team is because they don't really listen to what they've got to say. And a good example I can give you, I suppose, is that I've been doing leadership and management training for like 20 years now, nearly 25 years, and I can deliver the whole level 5 apprenticeship program, no bother at all, because of my experience. But what I know to be true is that if I was delivering a day on employee engagement or creative thinking or problem solving or something like that, we would have a blast, because I love those topics. when it comes to the financial side of stuff, yeah, I can do it. And I know what the requirements are of the apprenticeship and I can deliver the training, but it's not going to be half as much fun because it's just a bit of a dry and boring topic to me. But so we've got people that deliver that. And I think it's the same with any individual. There's elements of everybody's role that we love and there's elements that we don't like. So where we find that people are really excelling in particular elements, we do our best to make sure that that's certainly where the vast majority of their energy and time is focused. And I think that makes us a little bit unique, I guess.
It is, because I've had the pleasure of working with your company, looking at the impact that your leadership team makes. And one of the things that I found as a constant thing that your team said was, I was doing this, I learned this, I want to do something different. I spoke to Mark and he said, okay then, and now I'm doing this. How big is your team? Is it the size that allows you to do that?
I think there's a couple of things, I guess. The team, there's 30 people all in the team. And we are in a constant state of flux, movement, and innovation. But that's by design. I'm not impatient, but I get bored very easily. So I like to move things and I like to do things differently. And I live in the world of why. So, that's my number one. Why? Why are things done that way? And why does it have to be this way? And can we not change it? And I think when it comes to our team, we're always looking at new ways to make it, bigger, better, faster, more. And that, they should enjoy it. We've got it's not really our saying, but it's something that we adopted. There's no such thing as work-life balance. There's only life. So if it's not the job that you're jumping out of bed for on a Monday morning and excited, or even a Tuesday morning if you're taking a Monday off, then you're in the wrong role. And we've said to people all along that we've changed the business over the years. We've changed direction. We've added new services. We've turned some services off that weren't working for us and we just weren't feeling. But we've always said, look, this is the direction we want to go in. We want your input. We value your input and thoughts on this, because ultimately you're the people that are on the sort of front line with it. If it's not for you, then that's okay. There's no problem there. We can shake hands and part ways and still be friends. If it is for you, then great, and we'll move on. And we've had that over the years. Some people it doesn't necessarily work out for, but it's genuinely, a positive experience. And I think I believe in the UK that we don't listen to, the workforce enough. And I think that's, people are stuck with hierarchies and stuck with opinion and, where they should draw resource and influence from. And that's, I think, derogatory to business growth.
Yeah, I think one of the things that really struck me was everybody in your team was very happy to be there. That sounds really terrible actually saying like that, isn't it? But more often when you have those private conversations, people kind of tell you, yeah, I'm not too sure I want to stay here, or, whereas to a man, everybody was like, yeah, I can't imagine being anywhere else. And then when I asked questions about how had things changed and what did that mean, there were still members of the team that said, well, I didn't think I could cope with that change, but it was the best thing and it worked out really well, and I trusted that Mark thought it was right, so I was going to go with it. It was really refreshing after all the years I've worked with companies to see that. I kind of want to work there myself now.
That's very kind of you to say so. I guess we do put a lot of emphasis on culture, and I know a lot of people do, and well-being obviously is paramount, as is support in terms of.
And you have a wellbeing person, don't you? You have somebody responsible for wellbeing. I've not seen that before in a small company.
Yeah, we've actually got 3. We've got a wellbeing manager, and she's supported by 2 others as well that are in our team. Yeah, because I guess like I said, already, my ethos is that you should be enjoying it, and if there's a better way of doing things, fine, tell us. I often say to the team, look, I've got no issue with you coming to us and saying, Mark, that's crap. That's not working. This just doesn't, I'm quite happy to hear that. I prefer it to be backed up with an opinion as to what the solution is. But we're quite open to suggestions and to opinion, because I say these are people that are doing it, and we're very fortunate that we've amassed a really strong team, and we know pretty much where everybody's strengths lie, and as a result of that, we work together. I think that it's I guess it's an analogy, but it's like a football team. The sum of the team collectively is greater than the sum of its parts, if that makes sense. They all work together really well, and have each other's back. Where there's an issue with something, somebody needs that extra support, they'll jump in and do that and provide that. So we're very lucky. It's the best team I've ever had.
Yeah, but I think it's because you designed it that way. Because I really loved when you said that you work in a state of flux by design, which is very Mavericky, which I don't know if you know that I define Mavericks as willfully independent people, which you certainly are.
Thank you very much.
But what I find quite interesting is that Mavericks can't stand routine. They get bored really easily and always looks for the challenge. And what's really common with entrepreneur Mavericks is that they tend to break the systems that they're in so they can have the fun of fixing it. Whereas you found a different way. You're laughing because that sounds familiar, doesn't it? But yeah. you found a different way. So rather than breaking it to fix it, you actually move the business on and avoid breaking the team whilst you do it. How do you do that?
Well, I suppose there's a couple of things that play really with that. And one is, everybody that's here, that's part of our team, is there for a reason. There's a point where, we've got quite a rigorous induction and interview process, that we go through with everybody. That's usually a couple of phases, and they get to meet me first. And if that doesn't put them off, they then get to meet, the rest of the other senior teams. And it's multi-stage, and we drive home what the culture is, what the business ambition is. So we're very open and honest from the moment that we first interview anybody. So everybody in the business is here for a reason, and there isn't they haven't been stupid across or just fell into the role. It's a role that they've picked. So on that basis, if they get bored and change, they want to do something different, then we owe it to them, I think, to have a look at exploring that and making that happen where we can. I've done quite a bit of work over the years with a couple of different banks, providing support to young entrepreneur. I used to be one, now I'm an old entrepreneur. I don't know how that happened. That crept up very quickly. But anyway, so you provide people. And one of the constant things I always heard was, nobody's ever as passionate about my business as me. And that is true, and understandably so. But, and there's a big caveat there, you can find people that are passionate about an element of your business. And one of the problems that I think most employers have is that, your job is admin, for example. Let's say you're an administrator, your job's, it's answering the telephone. Now that doesn't ring so much now, it's emails, but answering the incoming communications, perhaps planning events, organising filing, carrying out work on MIS systems or something like that. And it might be that there's one element of that you particularly excel at. So if you've got two administrators and the one loves answering the communications and planning the events and the other one absolutely loves filing and auditing, split the role. Don't make them both do all four elements. Let one do the two that they love and the other one do the other two that they love. And that's the ethos that I've always had when supporting these entrepreneurs. I said, look, you're not going to find anybody that is as passionate as you, because it's your baby and it cannot and will not be theirs. But you can find somebody that absolutely loves logistics and they can do that. You can find somebody that absolutely loves marketing and they can do that. Somebody will love, and it's not me, planning protocols, policies, and finance side of things, and you can find someone to do that. So that's how you build a team that's as focused and driven as the company owner, by finding the elements that each individual loves and allowing them to flourish in that and giving them support when they need it. And one of the other things, I guess, is the breathing space to make mistakes and learn.
It seems to me that you are very naturally a Maverick leader and someone who understands the principles of Maverick leadership. And what I mean by that, Maverick leadership is about who you are as an individual and what you do. So you're naturally looking at the individual and saying, who are they? So what is it that they love doing? You know, looking at their value set, whether they fit in or not fit in. And then you look at what they're doing. And then you're designing your roles around that, as opposed to designing it around a function. So it's almost like you see no borders. So you hire I'm just sort of thinking out loud, but you're hiring the person, aren't you? You're not hiring for a role. You're hiring, Jennifer to do something. And that, let's decide, I like Jennifer and I think she can do stuff. So let's work out where Jennifer fits in terms of what's required to be done. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, there's certain, obviously, elements like, the payroll is a good example. So, we've got different people that do slightly different roles in each of the payroll. Some do tutoring, some do, resourcing, some are moving around in that. And, we've got Helen that does policies, for example. So, yeah, it's a case of, we meet people. I believe greatly in fate and karma. So, you come across somebody, you think, actually, I'd really like to work with them. I think they're going to be, fab to just engage with them. And I can learn a lot from them as well, which I think is another key thing that leaders should accept. Learn from everybody, irrespective of the role. And, yeah, we just we put it together. It's like, look, this is where we're at. I think we can work great. What's your ideas? What's your take on it? So just make it a little bit more, I suppose, refreshing.
That's really interesting. So what's the most important thing for the person then? So in your business and your hiring, what are you looking for?
I guess that's a difficult one. Probably the first thing that springs to my mind has to be positivity, because we all have bits that we don't like doing and issues, and we can be negative about things. So to turn that on its head, the positivity element I'm looking for is, look, I don't like doing this, but I've got this idea, or this is an alternative. So I think openness as well. You're asking me to put one thing on there, it's kind of difficult, but it's got to be communication, I suppose, for one thing, really, and that the ability to talk. We do have a hierarchy because you have to have a hierarchy, and people like to sort of work to that and see what that is. Personally, I don't. That's easy for me to say because I'm a chief executive, but I really don't like hierarchies. But I treat everybody the same, irrespective of their role or level of responsibility, and their communication can be exactly the same. There's no, if somebody's got something they want to say or an idea, they can come and bring that. So yeah, communication, being open and honest, I think.
Yeah, so when you mention communication there, it sounds like you're talking about someone's personal attributes and values as opposed to style. Do you know what I mean? That's what it sounds like to me. So if the person has the right attitude, values and principles, then you will find something for them to do.
Yeah. Absolutely. We've been known to take people on when we haven't needed to take people on, a lot of businesses will have a succession plan, which, we do have a succession plan. So we know where we're going with that, because it would be foolhardy not to. But if we come across the right individual and we think, we can work together really well, they could benefit me, Mark Bremner, and plus the business and the team, and I think they'll enjoy working with us, then we'll take them on and bring them into the team, even though there isn't necessarily, and then create a role. We've done that on a couple of occasions. So much to my CFO's disgust.
But you can't ignore the value of having a high performing team that's outward facing in that way, because I suppose you're creating a load of maverick leaders, I guess, those that will stand up and say this ain't working, or somebody who wants to work for a greater good. I get a sense that the organisation is that we're here to do something bigger than sell apprenticeships.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, I suppose it sounds like a sales pitch, but it's not a sales pitch. You know, when I talk to anybody about what we do as a business, I always say, look, we're interested in taking you as an individual from where you are now. And the first question is, where do you want to get? You know, what is it you want? What do you want to achieve? And we'll help you do that. You know, that is our ethos, whether it's to become a payroll or a better leader, a qualified internal auditor, whatever it is. And we always say, look, you're going to get your qualification, you're going to get your apprenticeship, but it's going to become as a result of you working with us and us working with you to make you be good at your role and an advanced practitioner, whatever level it is. We're not going to follow a qualification in a linear fashion and a tick book and work through it. You'll get it, but it will become as a result of working with us. And that's why I think the offer that we've got is completely flexible. People can move modules around. There's different teaching styles. There's, you know, whether it's coaching or tutoring or workshops, they can pick and choose that. So, you know, there's flexibility there as well. And we're willing to move and learn. You know, we're always trying to engage with our employers. And we make mistakes. Of course we do. You know, we get things wrong. And sometimes we haven't, you know, we don't live up to the service that we want with apprentices. And sometimes it's the same with employers. But what we do is we're very responsive. We go straight back to them and say, okay, so we get, you know, why, you know, we understand this hasn't worked. Why is that? Is that our fault? Is it your fault? How do we put it right? You know, what's your ideas? You know, we appreciate you're not happy, you know, with some element of our service. What do you want that to be? And I could give examples of where we've gone, actually, yeah, that's a real valid point, and we're going to change that across the whole business. Thanks for sharing that with us. So, you know, it's not just a team.
See, I don't think you recognise just how maverick you are, actually, Mark.
No, I don't know. I'm not sure on that. So I've always been a bit maverick, and I hate conformity, I must admit. And, you know, I got a job once years ago, and as a leadership trainer, actually, and I went for the interview, and I got the interview, and I went in a suit and an open shirt, open collar. And then it was start Monday. And the last conversation I had by telephone was, you know, and don't forget to wear a tie. And I just went, yeah, okay. And I turned up, and they were like, you haven't got a tie on. And I was like, you were serious about that? And they were like, yes, you know. And I was like, what? How does whether or not I wear a tie impact on my ability to provide leadership training? Well, it's, you know, it's our policy. Why? You know, I guess it probably wasn't the best start in the world, but, you know, I think they got to know me. And I actually, very boring short story, but I ended up running the centre and then the area and then the region for that company. And one of the first things I did was abolish the what's the uniform, the dress code. Yeah, absolutely. You know,
that is so funny, because I had the complete opposite. So I went for a role, got the role. This is like head of HR. I turned up in a suit, and they said, "We don't wear suits. We're all jeans and t-shirts. Can you change?" So I had the opposite. It was like, but the same conversation, but the other way around. It's like, but I actually was. Yeah. So it's quite funny. Yeah. So that ability to flex with, you know, seeing the need, like the employers want X. So rather than going, the employers want, I don't know, 20 apprenticeships done in a year or something. You're saying, you go, okay, I understand that's your need. And now we're going to get that done, but we're going to look at the needs of the actual individual apprenticeships and make sure that they get that done, because they get a chance to pick and choose how their modules are going to be delivered based on their style. Yeah. And then that in itself is really unusual.
Yeah, we've got examples of cohort learners, you know, 10 and 20s, and they're on completely different learning journeys in terms of modules that they're on, the styles that's being delivered, and obviously the pace in which they're going through it, because, you know, people are individuals. Ultimately, they all achieve their qualification at the end and, you know, become an advanced practitioner. But, you know, the journey through that can change. And, you know, people say, oh, I want to do this in 6 months. Or, you know, well, yeah, you're not going to do it in 6 months because it's too detailed. You know, it's more like for payroll as an example, it's more 15 to 18 months in all honesty for a level 3. But, you know, okay, you want to set yourself at the target for 12 months, then we'll have a look at that. And, if it can be done, great. If it can't, that's fine. But I guess one of the other interesting, it's interesting to me, it might not be interesting to you, but one of the things, people will say, look, I want to do it in 12 months. And I say, 12 months isn't 12 months, it's 10. And they look at me like I'm mad. And I say, first of all, Christmas, December, everybody has to do twice the work in half the time. So that makes it an 11-month program. And I assume you're going to have a holiday, and you may well have sickness, and particularly payroll, April, end of tax year and new tax codes to learn and P11Ds and all these sorts of things. So you pretty much lose a month there. So without blinking an eye, your 12-month plan, you've only got 10 months to achieve that. So let's be a little bit more flexible and give ourselves a target of 15. And if we come in early, great. But if we don't and we come in 15 months, then that's okay as well,
That makes perfect sense. And there's lessons to be learnt there from education and also how people view development per se with their employees. Why do you think other companies don't personalise their interventions?
I don't know. I guess it depends on their structure, and it depends on their team. We've got we bring in industry experts. I mean, I previously, I could be careful what I say now, but I previously interviewed people for roles, and I've been doing this training. I'm not going to say which sector, but I've been doing this particular training. Let's just say hairdressing. It's not hairdressing because we've never done that, but I've been a hairdressing training for 10 years, and they come to us for a job, and I look at them and go, yeah, but you shouldn't have been a hairdresser trainer for 10 years because you were only a hairdresser for 3 months. Yeah, but I've been a trainer. Yeah, but you don't have that experience. And I think a lot of further education companies or colleges, if you like, have tutors that aren't necessarily industry experts. So they have to stick to a formulaic plan. It's a bit like some of the secondary education stuff, isn't it? Where they've got, this is the lesson you're going to teach, and you've got to run from these PowerPoints and don't deviate. And there's elements of that we would benefit from adding, I guess, because it can give a consistency, which some organizations prefer, but it does make it less Maverick, to steal your words. So I think it's just our approach in how we set the business up and the individuals that we have. But there are other providers that are a bit flexible as well. There's some peer companies that we admire that, other apprenticeship providers that do a cracking job as well.
Yeah. You know what? It makes me laugh you saying that, because I see it the same way for the stuff that I do with clients, in the sense that, like a lot of socialised Mavericks, very broad experience, but very deep experience also. And then sometimes people put this inflated thing, I don't know, like you need to have got X qualification, or you need to have, I don't know, a coaching qualification this, or you must be accredited to the ILM for that, and then you think, yeah, but the person that you want to do that doesn't have much real experience. So when it comes to actually working with the individual, with a company, there's less they can do. So like sometimes I'm asked to, I don't know, deliver some form of leadership training, and then you'll be sitting there working it through with the attendees, and they'll say, this is not going to work in my department because I'm working in marketing and we've got this real issue with a competitor. I can say, well, what's the problem? And I can stand there and, draw a Boston matrix and go, right, okay, let's work this out. Okay. And then reflect it back to what we're learning, and then you move on. But that comes because I understand various components of things from experience. And I think that's where you add, isn't it? Where people can turn around and say, oh, I'm running this and I don't think it will work in my industry. And you say, well, actually, I think it will because X, Y, and Z, because you have that experience. And I think people lose that because sometimes they're looking for qualifications that are not necessary. Not to say I don't have those qualifications, but, it shouldn't necessarily be, oh, you should have this qualification if the role requires a breadth and depth that's not needed in that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. I remember years ago going for I had a business that lost a business and went bankrupt, when I was early 20s. And I remember going for a role as a business consultant. And two things that stick in my mind. I did get the role actually, but I turned it down. One was, he said to me, "Why should we employ you as a business consultant when you've, lost a business and you've gone bankrupt?" I said, "Well, because I've seen the downside of it, and a lot of others won't have seen that.
Yeah.
I've built a business, sold a business, built a business, lost a business. So, and I have another business as well that's running. So I've got that experience. Yeah, I don't have an MBA. I don't have a university degree even, but what I do have is experience." And across different sectors as well. So there's things I've learned. I've worked a lot in the training industry, but I've worked in building sector as well. I've worked in retail and hospitality, and also the music industry for a short period. So there's things you can learn from each of those that people wouldn't necessarily think about implementing. Because they don't have, I suppose, I haven't seen that or thought that way, but that's probably helped us. But another ludicrous, and a very minor thing, but I can't grow a beard, right? And that might not sound very relevant, but this business consultancy job I was offered, they told me I looked too young. It's not a problem I have now, but at the time, all those years ago, they told me I looked too young and said I needed to grow a beard to get the job, and I couldn't. I was like, I can't grow a beard if my life depends on it. In all honesty, I don't want to work for a company that's going to put that much stock on how I look either. Yeah. I turned it down. But yeah, you look too young to be a business consultant. I was like, that's ludicrous.
It is, because like you work with millennials, or even Gen Z, who they're millionaires, but they're only like 25, and some of the things that they might be worried about is that kind of, I'm not old enough to do this. And you're like, seriously? You're running a business that's turning over all this money. What do you mean you're not old enough? You're clearly old enough. And I know that I think that's very common with Mavericks, because most Mavericks start extremely young. So I know for many years I was always the youngest person sitting on the board, the youngest person in this particular role. I must admit, it was a bit of a shock when I suddenly realised I was old enough now, because it
yeah, when people's not for you, but when people start calling you sir and holding the door, it's great, but it's not as well.
I know, because I suppose it becomes part of your identity, isn't it? You kind of like have that cachet of being really young, or like the only woman or whatever, and then it's like, oh, I'm now probably the oldest person in this room.
Yeah, it's interesting.
You talked before about I call it like, work and your life is a blend, isn't it? As you said, it's just you just have a life. Work fits into that. Yeah. But I understand you're quite flexible as well, aren't you, in your working arrangements for your team?
Yeah, we were, I suppose, very lucky with this year, in all honesty, with coronavirus, because first of all, 70% of what we did was already online, so that was extremely helpful. But secondly, we're well versed. I can give you a litany of examples where people have changed roles and changed working hours and stuff, and I'm not particularly interested in micromanaging anybody any more than I'm interested in being micromanaged. So, I don't judge people on attendance. I'm not interested in 9 to 5 Monday to Friday, never have been. Everybody's got their roles to do, and there's KPIs and targets that we follow. But if you blast through that and get it done in 3 days, fine, have Thursday, Fridays off, I don't mind. And if you want to change your working hours to suit, then you can do that. Like I run, for example, so I like to go running at least 3 times a week, and I prefer it at the end of the day. So in the summer, it's like 4, half 4. I'll go for a run, for an hour or so, or an hour and a half. And obviously can't do that now because it's dark, and I like to on the canals and some of the country lands where I live. So my working hours have changed, so that a couple of times a week I tend to finish about 2:30, and then I'll go for a run. You come back, shower, and then start working again from like sort of 4 till 7 or 4 till 8, something like that. And that suits me. So we give that flexibility to our team as well. Some of them have got young families and children that need to take priority over emails. So, they can get the work done when they can get the work done, and that's fine. So, yeah, we've always been flexible in that.
I heard, I'm pretty sure one of your managers said, they said it really offhand, that there's unlimited holiday. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true.
Because it was just like, oh yeah, well my friends are upset because I have unlimited holiday. I was like, what? How do you make sure people don't burn out? Because I've heard that when people have unlimited holiday, they feel, generally speaking, that they can't take time off. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, and that's one of the things. So people do have, KPIs and things to achieve. So it's not. I always say to them in interview, look, it's the unlimited holidays. It's not rainbows and unicorns. You're not going to do work a week, and then have 3 weeks off, and work another week and have 3 weeks off, and do that for on repeat throughout the year, because you wouldn't achieve your KPIs or your targets. So then the issues. What it's about is the flexibility. There's no need for you to get a line manager to approve if you want half a day off for, I don't know, dentist or a school play or sports day, or a couple of days off, or you fancy a long weekend, or you've had a crappy week and you're just not feeling it today. Just take Thursday. Yeah, it's fine. You're not in the mindset where I'm stuck. I really would like a day off. I'm feeling burnt out, but I can't do that because I've got no holiday left. That's just a crap situation to be in, isn't it? So I would say that probably since we've introduced unlimited holiday, the danger is exactly like you said, that people don't take enough. And we do monitor that. So the ops managers and the senior managers monitor that the team have sufficient time, and if they don't, then we do insist and say, look, you need to take a week off here, you need to say that. So I've never had an issue where people have taken advantage of it, and that's in coming up for 5 years now. We've just not had that issue at all. It's the other way around, where they're not using it enough, and we go, no, you need to take it, because it's about treating people like adults, isn't it? An analogy that I've used often with people is, to me, leadership's a mirror, not a window. And what I mean by that is, the old-fashioned idea of managers, standing in their office, peering through their window, watching what the workforce are doing on the factory or on the shop floor or whatever, monitoring them. That's crap. What leadership should be is you staring in a mirror and looking at yourself and going, actually, how would I like to be looked after? How would I like to be treated? What hours do I want to work? What pressures can I take? What pressures can't I take? And that's what leadership to me is. It should be a mirror, not a window.
Very interesting view. I suppose the danger of that is if you've got an individual who drives themselves really hard, then they might do that to their team.
Yeah, that does happen. I could probably think of an example of that as well. So that's it. Comes down to me then and the other members of the team to make sure that individual is helped to address that and make sure that they're not burning out and they're not pushing people. So sometimes you just have to. Yeah, well, ironically, we had this conversation yesterday, and there's an author that I really like, Brené Brown, who's written multiple books, and it's fantastic. And there's a whole chapter in one of the books that's about accepting people are doing their best. And if you can have that mindset that whether people are doing things right or wrong, they're doing it to the best of their ability, and that's the best, then it takes a little bit of pressure off your reaction to them or to that. I mean, don't get me wrong, sometimes it's frustrating and you're like, oh, it's just not good enough, things need to change. But for the vast majority of the time, people are doing their best. And even when things go wrong or people do things that you don't necessarily agree with, it's usually coming from the right place. I don't believe that people... I guess there are some people that are inherently bad, but most people aren't. It's good. And just because you think, why the hell have they done that? It's not to wind you up or to make an issue. It's their mindset, their default, operandi is this. And, the intent is good, and you've got to unpick that and then address, why it's not quite right. But have the thought that, look, they're trying to do the right thing, or that's just the way they are. And then how can I address that in ways that makes them feel better without losing their passion and enthusiasm?
Yeah, I definitely think I'm going to have to use you as a poster boy for Maverick leadership, I think. So,
I don't know about that. It's very kind of you to say.
but it's that kind of assume good intent, isn't it? So like if you're having a conversation with somebody and you're not agreeing, rather than immediately get on the defensive and get angry, is trying to seek underneath that and say, why are they acting this way? What do they need to believe to act in that way? And then it's easier to go, oh, they're assuming this. I remember I worked with an organisation, and every time I spoke to the FD, you'd say something innocuous and she'd go crazy. It was almost like you'd say, the sky's blue today, and she'd be like, no, it's black, she'd just go mad. And it was like, what? And then you suddenly thought, first of all, you think, is it me? Am I kind of like approaching it wrong? And then you like observe and you go, no, that's everybody. And then you sort of like, then I started to unpick it and say, what does she have to believe to react in this way when people talk to her? And then I thought, oh, she's actually believing that they're attacking her. So whenever somebody was saying something, she always read it as, you're stupid, or we talked about it. And then so by talking to her and resolving that, made it so she was much more congenial to everybody when she realized that it was kind of a deep-rooted childhood thing that she like carried for years, like 50 years or something, so that where everybody was an attack and she was not good enough.
Yeah, it is difficult. Like you said, that's, you've got to unpick their internal psyche for that, haven't you? And it's about how you communicate with them and what you put. A very broad example, we're very fortunate. I've got a business partner, Cheryl, who's fantastic support for us. He's fully qualified accountant, so we're poles apart in how we think and act, but it works really well as a foil. So I'll have a really exciting idea, something that I'm very excited about, and I can imagine it and see the big picture, and I'll try and explain it to Dave, and he's just not psyched about it because his mind doesn't work that way. But if I said to him, look, these are the figures, this is where we're at now, and what this new service is going to do is add this to the income, and this to the bottom line, etc., and this is the cost, and this is how it's going to be scaled, then he gets equally excited, because it's just the way he sees things, and that's a strength. It's just different comms. It took me a long time to understand that as well.
Yeah.
It's not, you don't just wake up and suddenly think that. And often we're all very guilty, because there's so many ways of communication, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
Email, WhatsApp, Slack, text message, and all the social media channels. A lot of them are restricted on character size. And it's really easy to read the wrong message into what people have written or said. And sometimes you need that breath to go, I'm not sure they meant that. And to be strong enough to go back to them and say, what did you mean by that?
Yeah. A lot of people are frightened to do that though, aren't they?
Yeah. I had an example. I was helping a business up in Scotland, actually doing some mentoring with a guy up there. And he's a member of staff that had worked with him for years and years, knew him personally. His performance had recently dipped, and there was issues with his performance and stuff. And to the point where I've had a quick chat with him, but that hasn't really worked. I said, well, you need a bigger chat with him. And he said, I'm thinking disciplinary. And I said, but I've known him years, and he's a family friend. And I said, well, that does make things a bit awkward. I said, but my advice to you would be to go to him and say, look, this is how I'm feeling, and this is why I'm feeling this about you at the moment, right? I'm not saying that this is wrong, this is right. I'm just telling you that my thoughts on your current role and position is this, and this is why I think that. So what I'd like you to do is just to take a couple of days to think about what I've said to you and come back and let's have a chat. And that to me is the better way of operating, because you're taking the emotion out of it. First of all, you can easily throw someone into a disciplinary and give them a letter as to what they're facing, and they can read that however it's written, not necessarily intended. And it might just be that this individual's just having a bit of a naff time with something that you're unaware of, and they don't know that you're feeling that about their performance. And if you give them the opportunity, just by being open and honest, but let them time to go away and digest it and come back to you, then you remove all doubt and you remove the emotion. And this guy I was talking to, I never even thought that, can we talk to people like that work for me? Yes, you can talk to people like that anywhere. There's respect is about respecting an individual. It doesn't matter what their job title or role is, and that goes both ways, you know. So you can say anything to anybody in a respectful manner, and that's fine. I don't mean that, you know, people should suddenly start blurting out comments all over the place, but people are too frightened to just say, you know, I think that's not working at the moment for you, because they think I'm stuck by this hierarchy, I'm stuck by this disciplinary process, or, you know, grievance process or whatever. There's nothing wrong with having a conversation. Nothing wrong at all. And that's half the battle, I think.
Yeah, it's part of good leadership, isn't it? So, I mean, if you get to the point of disciplinary or performance improvement review or something like that, it shouldn't be a surprise, isn't it? So you should have had those conversations you know, that's like the last resort you got to this point, because, you know, it's not a surprise. And that's one of the things I noticed a lot when I've been going into companies where, you know, you get to that stage and the people are surprised. They're like, well, I've been doing this for the last 20 years. You know, when did that become unacceptable? Well, 20 years ago, but no one had the guts to tell you that it wasn't appropriate. And I remember my first HR role, I was head of HR in a retail organisation, and food retail. And what happened was, you know, you take people on for their 12 weeks. And what was happening, there was this huge turnover, because the managers would take on staff, but they wouldn't manage them, they wouldn't review them, they wouldn't do anything. And then if they somehow didn't work out, which wouldn't be that surprising because they'd not been managed, they would just sack them and get new people. They had no investment. They were just bodies. In fact, that organisation called their staff by the number of hours. I've got, you know, 5-8 hour people. I've got, you know, actually didn't call them people, it was just hours. I've got 40 hours. I've got this, you know, it was all just subjects of hours. And when I came on board, bearing in mind I was 24, I just refused to sack any, because I couldn't sack anybody without me. And I just refused to do it. I said, until you've done a proper review of individuals and you sat and talked to them and told them about the performance, I'm not sacked. None of them are going to be sacked. So it was kind of a lonely position to be in, because nobody had ever turned around and said, you are not doing a good job. Your job is not to take fresh kids on and then just sack them because you want another fresh lot of kids, because I mean, it has an effect on those individuals' lives, you know, going forward. Can you imagine, you know, you're 18, 19, 20 and you've been sacked. How do you get another job?
I know, yeah. No, I agree. And there's something fundamentally wrong with that business, you know, from recruitment and induction through to training, through to leadership and management, you know. And often that's rotten from the top, isn't it? And those things are difficult.
Exactly. I mean, it got turned around. But what was interesting, I noticed, was that it was endemic in the organisation, because every store I went to, and I became a little troubleshooter, I went to quite a lot of them, that was the business practice in all of them. Do you know what I mean? So it was like, oh, so this is actually how the company is run then. You know, this massive national company. It's not very good. So how do you trust others to do their roles? Because you said you don't micromanage, you give them the flexibility on their work patterns, talk to them and treat them like adults. How do you manage to trust them to do their roles when so many other leaders struggle with that?
I think it starts from, you know, their induction, and first, you know, it's an explanation about the culture. So that first of all, they know what they're going to get before they've joined us. And then once they do join us, it's about, first of all, making sure those communication channels are open and available at any time if they've got any questions or any support. But secondly, it's just about giving them the freedom to try and experiment. You know, I prefer to put the unlimited holidays, for example, it's not something that's earned, it's something that's given immediately. And then, you know, if necessary, it can be taken away. But yeah, so we kind of give them everything that we can to help them swim, hope that they don't sink, knowing that if we're available, if they need the support. But ultimately, you know, we do monitor the business because we have to. We've got KPIs, etc., and we've got various satisfaction surveys that run every month. Plus, we're in contact with the staff almost daily via Slack or email or other things. So, you know, there's a freedom to explore and do your job, but there's also opportunities to engage with everybody else as well. So and we, like I say, we do monitor performance, but it tends to be at a high level. And we never go to somebody and say, why is this like that? It would be like, we've noticed this, how come, what's your thoughts behind that? It wouldn't be, we don't have a that's wrong conversation with it.
Brilliant.
We don't understand that. Explain it to us.
Okay, that's great. I think this is probably a good place to stop. But before I do that, is there something that you wished I had asked and I didn't do that?
No. No, I think we've had I've really enjoyed talking to you about it, and I really appreciate the opportunity for you, for me to come on your podcast. So thanks for that. I'm very honoured. And no, it's been a good conversation. I can't believe it's been an hour already, but yeah.
I know, it's been fun actually. I could talk to you forever because you're so much fun to talk to. So if we find another subject, would you come back again?
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd be honoured to. So yeah, I enjoyed talking to you as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you once again for tuning into the Maverick Paradox podcast. I hope you have enjoyed listening to my conversation with Mark as much as I enjoyed having it. At the Maverick Paradox, we improve your impact and influence by enabling you to effectively strategize, innovate, and execute. To find out more, contact us at judith@maverickparadox.com. Thank you. If you are pathologically curious and would love to find out more about the Maverick Paradox, then please subscribe to this podcast on one of the popular podcast platforms. Alternatively, you could explore our resources on Mavericks at maverickparadox.com or read the Maverick Paradox magazine. We publish frequently each week. If you subscribe, you will get our monthly newsletter. And let's not forget my book, The Maverick Paradox, The Secret Power Behind Successful Leaders. For those that love a good discussion, you could apply to join our exclusive Facebook group. Finally, if you would like to work with us or are interested in the Maverick at work, check out maverickparadox.co.uk.